people like to hear about themselves. People like to understand that you're watching and that you understand what their challenges are. They're much more willing to have a conversation.
Hello, and welcome to a whole new episode of Engati CX. I'm your host, Kimberly, and we're really excited to have all of you join us today. On this show, we talk to CX and technology experts from around the world. We explore, uncover, and share fresh insights on creating experiences that your customers will remember and look forward to. Engati is the world's leading multilingual, no code digital CX platform available across 15 channels with 53,000 solutions created across 186 countries in every domain and use case. Engati has also been recognized as the top platform by Inc. magazine, Tech World, CIO magazine, and many others. Engati recently also won the Cody 2021 award for being the best AI driven technology solution. We run the Engati blog, the video channel, the Engati CX podcast, receiving upwards of 500,000 visitors annually. And now let me welcome to you to our guest. We have Dale Zwizinski who on our show today. He is an energetic, top-performing sales leader who is passionate about technology. He has more than 20 years of experience in international sales and is known for his ability to grow and enhance business. Dale is in a constant look for innovative technologies to evangelize using his executive level business communication and presentation skills. Welcome to the show, Dale. We're so glad to have you join us today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kimberly. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to the interview.
Before we dive into our amazing interview with Dale, don't forget to subscribe to Engati so that you get access to exclusive content coming from thought leaders from around the world. Well, Dale, we've definitely heard your voice around sales and how you kind of put forward the best perspective to this. You've kind of spoke about sales foundation elements. Would you like to tell us about them and how can it actually be useful to all our sales folks out here?
From a foundational element, what I've seen is there's sales is changing so quickly. Over the last 5 years, it's exponentially changing, and so I look at it in 6 month chunks. However, what I do see prior to that is just getting a foundational layer. Like, what is the sales process? How do you map it back to the buying process? How the individual pieces, like, sending recap emails, doing the basics, following up with people, being on time for meetings, some of those basic fundamentals. We're trying to get so tactical or almost in a mode of getting around buyers versus just being genuine human and going through the process of how they actually buy or finding out how they buy. So the foundational elements are just, understanding your sales process, what you have to do internally, and asking the buyer how you map it to the buying process. What we forget as sellers a lot of times is we do this on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. Many of our buyers, especially in the enterprise space, may buy once every 3, 4, 5 years. So they're not as in tune with how to buy as we are to sell. So we get really anxious. But I think if you stick to the fundamentals, stick to the human aspect of the sales process and the buying process, that's where I really think you'll get the biggest bang for your buck instead of just trying to leap over all those foundational elements.
Right. You've clearly mentioned that communication is something that really needs to be touched upon since, there has been a gap for our buyers and we at sales, we keep on doing this regularly. How can we modify our communication approach for inbound versus outbound prospects?
Inbound is much easier because you get a little bit of data. So once you have an understanding of data or understanding where they're going, I always like to go to either my community. So is there people that know this person or know the customer, or go on to LinkedIn, find out what they're doing, find out if they're posting information. What are they doing in the social sphere that will give you indication of how to connect with them human to human. And then on the outbound side, it's even more important to try to find 1 or 2 pieces of data. A lot of people I talk about a 3x3. So finding 3 pieces of data in 3 minutes on either an individual or an organization that can actually help you in the communication process. So whether it's email or phone calls or LinkedIn messages, and LinkedIn's becoming the new spam. I think it's been like that now probably for 2 or 3 years. And I think the pandemic has actually exacerbated it. And so what I tell people is just find some of that piece of the data. Some of the best outreach I get are people that contact me, are people that know something about me, they may mention this blog. Hey, I saw you on this interview. I saw you on this interview. I really liked XYZ. That gets people engaged. People like to hear about themselves. People like to understand that you're watching and that you understand what their challenges are. They're much more willing to have a conversation. And I can't tell you how many people reach out to me, want to connect with me on LinkedIn, and like the next thing is a pitch, or in the pitch in the actual invite. And I'm like, this is just not the way to do sales.
What about outbound prospects? I mean, it's like a different whole situation here, right?
Same thing, 3x3. So find 3 pieces of data. And if the person's not on LinkedIn, their company is somewhere. And I'm talking more enterprise sales. Like if you get into the transactional sales, this may fall apart because it's just too much stuff happening. But on the enterprise side, you're trying to get into larger organizations. They have 10Ks, their CEOs are speaking at webinars, people are talking about certain things. And I also believe that make sure that there's a fit to what you're trying to sell. Now, that is not always the case. There's times where you're educating or teaching people what they actually want. But in many cases, there's indications that the company is looking for this new platform, or they're looking for something to go about that they're about to purchase. And whether that's in breadcrumbs on LinkedIn and through webinars with the CEO, you can get all those pieces of data. And if you can get that data, you can utilize it in your communication, whether it's on the phone, in the email, on LinkedIn. I find LinkedIn as a long tail strategy where I want them to communicate with people in the organization or that person to actually generate a long tail strategy.
How can businesses actually go about drawing a sales forecast, keeping AI in space? I mean, now AI has become such a buzzword that we're trying to squeeze in AI and technology. How do you see a sales forecast here?
Let me give you a real life example. So as we look at our forecast, there's several layers of the forecast. So the rep has an understanding of what's happening. The leader, the manager has an understanding of what's happening. And nowadays we have a lot of AI technologies that can tell you, based on past performance or based on the number of emails that are getting sent. And it's not only emails out. So a lot of times when I talk to my team, it's not about the emails going out to the customers, it's the responses that you're getting. It's the information you're getting back from the customer and how you're interacting. So there's a ton of technologies out there right now where you don't even need the AI piece of it, but they have confidence ratings and models that they're running. But you can just see visually, okay, there's back and forth happening. This is probably a good deal. Or, hey, there's a lot of back and forth in the beginning. And then you sent a bunch of information about a bunch of emails or contacts or calls, but they never called you back. Well, the reality is that deal is probably not a real deal. So do you really need AI? Yeah, I think there's a place for it. And I think if the model is robust enough and you have enough data, it's all about the data, and if you're changing your sales process or you're changing things in the middle of it, how predictable is the AI based on the past model? Once again, going back to the initial question or conversation, sales is changing every 6 months. So as long as the AI can keep up with the changes that are happening in the business and in sales, then I think there's a place for it. I always say, just take it with a grain of salt, because your business best. Understand, are there big deals that are coming in that will, or are your salespeople not putting the data in Salesforce or any CRM good enough? Or is the AI picking up on outliers that we may need to understand?
We'd definitely like to know what is the one thing that sales leadership needs to be abide by?
I think being empathetic and taking each individual salesperson as a salesperson and not trying to group everybody together. So a lot of what I see is everyone trying to create, like, if you have a top salesperson, let's create everybody like this person. And people are not motivated by the same thing all the time. Yes, salespeople by definition usually are motivated by money, but that's not always the case. They may be motivated by something else. So I think you have to individually coach them and understand where they're coming from. Not that we coddle them, because I think that's the other extreme that can happen. Like, you either blanket them or you coddle them, but there's something in between. And as a sales leader, you have to understand everyone's individual process and then understand what they're good at, because not everyone's good at the same thing. Someone may be really good at prospecting and someone may be really good at, moving things through the funnel and getting through the process. And so, do you team them up? How do you team them up? I think of sales as more of a team sport. I know a lot of people in the past have thought about it as an individual sport, but more coaching and more just understanding what the salespeople are good at.
You've kind of touched upon the main important core values that every person should have, keeping in mind how the market would kind of turn around and stuff. Are there any other sound bites you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah, I think for me, there's if I was to hire somebody or hire a salesperson or the people that I always talk to, there's three characteristics I look for. The number one thing I look for is grind or hustle. Like, are you grinding and are you hustling? Mm-hmm. It's very difficult intrinsically. This is my philosophy. I don't know if it's true or not, but I don't think you can really train it or teach it or coach it. I think you either have it, you're motivated by something, or you're not motivated by something. And I think that happens. I posted this on LinkedIn a couple of days ago, and I think a lot of people said, yeah, you can get trained when you're young. Like, do you see it? What happens around it? But as you get older, as you get into your 20s, 30s, 40s, it's very hard to teach that or train it or coach it. So I look for that. And so when I go to hire somebody, the first thing I looked at is their LinkedIn profile, or look at what sales communities they're in, or look at what they're doing in the communities, how they're engaging with people. Because once again, sales is changing so rapidly. A resume to me is almost what you tell me you can do, versus LinkedIn and the communities is what you are doing. So there's a huge difference between what you say and what you do. And I want to see the doing versus the saying. The second one is integrity. So one of the reasons why I got into sales a long time ago, I used to be a coder. I used to write code, Java, .NET. I was a sales engineer. I did implementation work. But I got into sales in 1999, mostly because I saw salespeople not being completely honest or integrity based. They always wanted their commission check. They wanted the money. So when I was on site as an implementation person, I would see a lot of people say, look, I don't really want my salesperson in here. They're not telling me the right thing. And so at that point, it's like, if you want to be successful, you have to sell with integrity, especially nowadays in SaaS. Before, in perpetual licenses, it was much, but churn will kill any SaaS company. So how do you sell with integrity? And then the last one for me is super important, is coachability. If you're not coachable, if you can't be coached, and the same for me, like, I want to get feedback. Like, I don't want anyone to just say, hey, you're right, or that's not it at all. Like, coachability is a two-way street, and utilizing those resources in the coachability aspect. So, how do you take information, constructive feedback, and actually implement it? So those are the three big things that I think, from my perspective, once again, getting down to the fundamentals, the foundational level, that's what I look for in salespeople. And I think those three attributes can branch off into being very successful.
Thank you so much for kind of putting down these sales ethics for us. And I'm sure it is very essential to kind of, have all these values in place. And I think that's when you can kind of make the best out of the deal, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Dale, for giving us your time. Your insights were really valuable.
Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
We'll be back again with a new episode and a brand new expert soon. So stay tuned. We'll see you around for the next one.